The world of cyberpunk is filled with mega corporations, colorful characters, and legends, all of which tend to have a history that runs much deeper than a glance would reveal. Stories of hardship, bloodshed, and even betrayal. This is no different for a family-based megacorp like Arasaka, a company founded by Kei Arasaka in the early 20th century that would eventually fall into the hands of his son Saburo, where it remained until 2077. When I mention a traitor and Arasaka in the same sentence, I imagine many of you single out a familiar name, Yorinobu, the second son to Saburo and rebellious leader of the Steel Dragons gang, who had vowed to tear the corporation down after its true intentions were revealed upon his graduation from the University of Tokyo. But that's not who we're talking about today. Yorinobu is pretty forward about being the rebellious Arasaka's son, and even when he became heir to the empire, his plan remained. But this video is actually about another traitor, one who bears the Arasaka name as well, Michiko Arasaka, the daughter of Kei Arasaka, head of the Hato faction, and CEO of the Danger Gal Corporation. She has quite the resume under her belt, but her story is much more interesting, one that entails the betrayal of her very own family, hidden from public eye, and even a romance with Adam Smasher. Oddly, we only see her once during our playthrough of 2077, in the Arasaka board meeting set up by Yorinobu, though she looks literally nothing like her previous appearances in the 2020s or 2040s. So, just how important is Michiko Arasaka? What was her early life like, and how did it all lead to the betrayal of her family's empire? Today, I will be unraveling the entire story of Michiko Arasaka thus far. Without further delay, let's begin. Michiko was born in 2008 in Night City, United States, to Kei Arasaka and an American mother of Japanese descent. Due to the status of Kei in the Arasaka Corporation and the unfavorable violence of her birthplace, Michiko and her mother were kept secret and hidden to avoid becoming a target. At the time, Night City was under the rule of the West Coast mobs. Between 2005 and 2009, much of the city's government was replaced by corrupt mob-selected puppets. Between selling contracts to their colleagues, setting up drug and extortion deals, and generally inviting the worst of the recent collapse into the area, the mobs managed to turn a relatively clean, modern metropolis into a war zone. Crime, drugs, prostitution, random violence, and cybernetic terrorism soon became the rule of law. But Kei chose to remain in Michiko's place of birth, the core reason being to avoid a meeting between Michiko and her grandfather Saburo, who would be displeased that his granddaughter was half American, despite her mother being of Japanese descent. By the age of 4, the mob rule of Night City had come to a close, placing it under the oversight of its largest corporations, who now held power over the government and even had their security forces provided full authority within city limits. At this time, Kei took the opportunity to assign a personal bodyguard to Michiko. This obviously wasn't just any run-of-the-mill bodyguard, which makes sense for an Arasaka family member. His name was Kenichi Saburo, a highly trained Arasaka solo and the true nemesis of Morgan Blackhand. Yeah, it isn't actually Adam Smasher. That's a one-sided relationship. Due to all of this, Michiko had a sheltered early life, being unaware of her family's darker side and the company's schemes. Though this obliviousness wasn't unusual for the younger members of Arasaka, seeing as Yorinobu lived the same sheltered life. He was 13 years younger than Michiko though, so they should have learned their lesson and raised Michiko a bit differently. Eventually, the Fourth Corporate War would form between Arasaka and Militech in the 2020s. Kei, as head of the Arasaka Corporation, was fully responsible for its operations and strategy during the conflict. This, of course, also made him the primary target of not only revenge, but to ultimately end the war. After the Arasaka HQ bombing of 2023, orchestrated by Militech and several teams of operatives, Kei was hiding out on his ship, the Sea Viper. As revenge for those lost during the Fourth Corporate War, such as Johnny Silverhand and Raish Bartmoss, Spider Murphy, along with Rogue and Chayton, infiltrated the Sea Viper. After knocking out all the guards on the ship, Kei Arasaka was baited into a meeting with Spider, where he found her wearing a kimono. They shared sake together as she explained his failure to the corporation, his family, and himself. His own nation had turned on him, and Murphy took advantage of that. She appealed to Kai's samurai roots and convinced him seppuku was the only way to restore honor to his family and everything they built. Kai reluctantly agreed by uploading his consciousness into a digital prison, using the soul killer device she had mentioned. Kai died, ending the war and restoring his honor. After his death in 2023, Michiko was suddenly faced with her family baited as one of the instigators of the war, and being blamed for the nuclear explosion after President Elizabeth Kress blamed the bombing on Arasaka, despite the fault lying on Militech in the United States. As a result, Michiko faced deportation to Japan despite being born in America. To prevent this, Michiko, using her youth, intelligence, and thousands of fans who believed her innocence, traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with President Kress, to apologize for her family's participation in the conflict, and to plead her case to remain an American citizen. Michiko's meeting had proved successful, and she was able to remain in Night City and finish school. But there was one stipulation. In exchange for her residence in the United States, and to prove a sort of loyalty as a citizen, she would be provided directives against the Arasaka Corporation. She would have to betray her own blood, a decision that didn't present much difficulty for her. She had been hidden and under heavy scrutiny by her own family since the moment she was born. Then to further this all, she was sheltered from the real world, the intentions behind her family's business, and of course, the final straw being the loss of her father and the full blame of the fourth corporate falling on her family, none of which she was guilty of. And yes, I know I put NUSA Sellout in the title, and in technicality it may not be accurate at the time of the agreement. I did it for ease of understanding, and because despite the country not being officially known as the NUSA until 2053, the actual rebranding of the country as the new United States occurred sometime between the end of the fourth corporate and 2040, when President Kress restructured the nation. Sorry for the tangent. In 2026, on Michiko's 18th birthday, something unexpected would occur. She left the Arasaka compound in the company of her personal guard, Zabra. While she was out bar hopping in Night City, she was causing and running into chaos everywhere she went, and eventually the culmination of chaos and the Arasaka Corporation tagged along, Adam Smasher. But he wasn't causing chaos like he normally would in his heavily modified Samson frame. He was actually making use of a Gemini body that resembled a young, blonde Elvis Presley, and while doing so, treated Michiko respectfully. In this night out, one of the few times Smasher showed some sort of humanity, it ended with a wild fling between Michiko and Adam Smasher. Though even after this, he ended up finding far more comfort remaining in his military frames, which shows in just how worn they've become by 2077. After finishing high school, Michiko entered Stanford University, where she majored in criminology. When she graduated 3 years later, she started her own business as a detective and founded the Danger Gal private investigation firm, a firm that specialized in cases for celebrities and other important clients. They would produce files and investigations around factions ranging from the NCPD and Trauma Team to the likes of the Bozos and Tiger Claws. Around this time, Michiko started to act perky and naive in public to hide her skills in criminology, being a staple of parties and events from New Hollywood to Europe. On the surface, the firm specialized on cases for socially prominent clients for astronomical fees, while in truth, they dismantled Arasaka operations in and around the United States, fulfilling the directive of Elizabeth Kress. In the late 2020s, when Arasaka broke into 3 factions, a small group of the corporation chose Michiko as their figurehead in hopes of giving them legitimacy and started the Haito faction, even though she did not want to affiliate with her family and the corporation at the time. The faction was the liberal wing and unified those who sought deeper reforms. Despite her reluctance, it is likely that Elizabeth Kress had pushed her toward accepting this position to make her more capable of spying on and dismantling Arasaka. Sometime in the 2030s, Michiko married Detective Mark Sanderson, a colleague and partner of hers shortly after the creation of Danger Gal. The two had fell in love during a particularly exciting case. When the two married, Michiko took Mark's surname and became Michiko Sanderson. She kept her bubbly, enthusiastic act into her 30s and was a constant sight at almost any important social gala. She also grew Danger Gal into a highly successful firm, with her cases making headlines for 2 decades by the 2040s, even boasting its own elite group known as the Puma Squad. While serving as a walking advertisement for Danger Gal, they were also the personal spearhead in covert anti-Arasaka operations for Michiko, working clandestinely to investigate and identify any stay-behind agents and eliminating them. Michiko had grown into an elegant, lovely woman who could read a room like a book, and yet never revealed anything to her suspects other than her happy, cheerful facade she kept up. Kenichi Saburo had remained by her side this entire time. After the Fourth Corporate War blew over and Arasaka was kicked out of the USA, Kenichi could no longer wear any Arasaka branding, but remain loyal to Michiko. He had also begun taking a less visible approach to the public while protecting her. At some point in the time of Red, Michiko heard about the movements of the Arasaka Nuke, which was salvaged from the Arasaka Towers after the AHQ incident by Samantha Stevens, a Borg firefighter who had been a first responder to the crisis, who also saved Johnny Silverhand during a studio fire sometime in 2015. She had held onto this nuke since the incident, keeping it in safe storage amongst other items that actually belonged to Johnny Silverhand, such as his Porsche and Malorian. It's a long story, but it is heavily implied that the nuke was turned into a cryogenic storage and contained Silverhand's body, though nobody knows it except Samantha and her friend Angel. Samantha had eventually hired a group of edgerunners to transport the nuke from Night City to her friend Angel in Los Alamos. Michiko had begun following the group of edgerunners, moving the nuke for some time, but had to delay the meeting with them to deal with a group of Arasaka who wanted to capture and use the nuke to gain back favor in Night City. Finally, her and her squadron caught up with the edgerunners, who were facing a Panzer tank. She helped them by destroying it with her 2 attack AV-9s. She then met with the group and explained to them the nuke's backstory, her girlish voice changing into a sharp staccato after being shown the trigger codes. Wanting to dispose of the nuke, Michiko offered them her help and followed their cars with her AVs to their destination of Los Alamos Labs, wishing them luck before returning to Night City. At some point after this, Michiko became an official member of the board in the Arasaka Corporation, although her faction still held the least amount of power of the 3. She also went back to using her maiden name. It is currently unknown what happened to the Danger Gal Corporation, if it was dissolved, bought out, remains as is, or even integrated with the Arasaka Corporation. We also are unaware of where Michiko's allegiances reside as of 2077. She very well could have been instrumental in the reintegration of Arasaka into Night City by the side of Lucius Rhine during the Unification War. Or she could still be acting as a double agent for the NUSA, which might just explain some of the success they had pushing Arasaka back out of Night City after V's awakening in 2079. But we are somewhat getting ahead of ourselves here. After the death of Saburo in 2077, Michiko, like the rest of the board, was quick to accept her uncle Yorinobu as the new CEO, who wanted to sabotage the corporation from inside. In the memorial parade for Saburo, she complied with her uncle's wishes. Michiko Arasaka will appear if V takes Hanako's offer during Nocturne. Michiko attends the board meeting set up by Yorinobu at Arasaka Tower, the same meeting that Hanako interrupts and introduces V, a witness of Saburo's murder. The mercenary testified to the board of directors of Yorinobu's betrayal. Michiko was reluctant to believe V, until Hanako showed the board the engram of Saburo, who explained the situation and scolded them for their cowardice. Michiko asked Saburo for his orders, who told the board to follow Hanako's as if they were his own. Yorinobu's troops interrupted the meeting, killing all the board members with the exception of Michiko, who managed to hide behind one of the chairs. After V and other Arasaka soldiers handled the attack, Michiko stays behind with Hanako. while V leaves to confront Yorinobu. And that, chooms, is everything we currently know about Michiko Arasaka. I hope you learned something new, and I've shed some light on the history and world of Mike Pondsmith's Cyberpunk. This video utilized information from the Night City, Firestorm Shockwave, Red, and Gal Dossier sourcebooks, alongside some statements made by Pondsmith. Let me know down below your favorite part of the video and what your thoughts are on Michiko as a character. I'd love to hear everything you have to say. If you're new and enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel for all your cyberpunk needs. If you'd like to take the extra steps to support my channel, all of the appropriate links will be down below. Also, a huge thanks to all the channel members up on screen. I appreciate all of you chooms for the support, as it motivates me to make bigger and better videos. I'm happy being able to create content that I love, so it seriously means a lot to me. As always, make sure to have a great week, and I will see you later, chooms.